Hi, I'm Robert Ishoy, and this funding project is titled Atlantis Expedition 2015. And that's exactly what I'm proposing, an expedition to find Atlantis. Now, in this short presentation, there's several things that I want to accomplish. First of all, to introduce myself so you get to know who I am and where I come from and how I came about to do this project. Second of all, I'm going to briefly introduce the basic concept of my thesis and how it came about. And then I also want to introduce the idea of the expedition itself, the plan that I have on how to pull this off. And then finally, I want to talk about the Society for Historical Exploration, the nonprofit organization that I'm planning to start with you in order to execute this expedition. Okay, so first of all, just briefly about myself, I did get my degree in history from California State University, Fresno. I wrote my thesis on Atlantis my senior year, so that was about 25 years ago already, so yeah, I kind of feel the clock ticking. I am a husband and a father and a grandfather. Yeah, I'm up there in age. And so, like so many other people, I got my degree thinking I would go on and teach and be a professor, maybe at a university, and instead my life ended up taking another course. I spent most of my life working in security and intelligence. I did serve some time in the military as well. So briefly, that's who I am. And now how I came about this thesis and this project, well, first of all, I realized in life that there's not very many things, as both these famous quotes point out, that there's not a lot of things that you can accomplish all by yourself. It takes other people to work with you and to help you. I also realized that in order to get people to stay with you and work with you and help you, you need to be able to be altruistic. You need to give more, if not more, at least as much as you take. Too often in life we find people want to get help, but they don't offer much in return, and that's not the case here. So when I talk about going on an expedition, I'm not talking about just myself, but I'm talking about me and you. Okay? Now the website was built in 2001. It's been maintained all that time. I want to personally thank my good friend Steve Morales, who owns Maya Company. He is the one that built my website and has maintained it all these years. And I personally want to thank him for that. But my thesis is on the website, so I encourage you, before you make any decisions about whether you want to participate in this project, is go on and read the whole thesis. And on there is my bibliography, my footnotes, so you can even review my research that I did. Okay? But now how this all got started, when I was a senior, again, I picked Atlantis, and I don't even remember why. And I started looking into it, and there were so many things written about Atlantis that were just, pie in the sky fantasy stuff. And it actually kind of drove me more to go in deeper and try to figure out, okay, what is this Plato really talking about when he talks about it as Atlantis? Obviously, a lot of these stories are too fantastic. Well, a couple years prior to that, I had one of my instructors at Merced College. He was actually talking about Ulysses and the writings by Homer. And Homer mentions that Ulysses had passed through the Pillars of Hercules, and yet there's clear evidence that Ulysses never went out of the Mediterranean Sea. So he pointed out that probably in the Miocene Greek time, 1,000 years or so before Plato, the Greeks had probably never ventured out to the Atlantic Ocean and the Rock of Gibraltar, and that the original Pillars of Hercules was in fact the Strait of Messina, which is in between the boot of Italy and Sicily. Well, when that thought came back into my mind when I was working on this Atlantis, all of a sudden everything started to click. And when I realized that Plato said that Atlantis was beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and we can kind of visualize how the ancients would have thought about things, in Herodotus' book, and Herodotus being the world's first historian, he even mentioned in his writings that Sardinia was the largest island in the world. And yet we realize in our modern times that there's 47 islands larger than Sardinia. So it's not the largest island in the world, but that shows how the perception changes throughout time. So let's kind of visualize how maybe the ancient Greeks, way before Plato's time, may have visualized their world. And if they did, in fact, visualize the Strait of Messina as the Pillars of Hercules, everything kind of falls into place. Because Plato said that Atlantis was a large island beyond the Pillars of Hercules. He said it's surrounded by a great continent, and we can see that North Africa, Southern Europe surrounds Sardinia. Plato said that there was a chain of islands on the west of Sardinia, or Atlantis, that led to that continent, and there we have the Balearic Islands. So everything that Plato described as far as the geographical location of Atlantis all of a sudden fits when we move the Pillars of Hercules to the Strait of Messina. Now, here's a picture of the strait. As you can see, it's very narrow, a treacherous state to go through. And there on the side of the Strait of Messina is what it looks like. And so you could visualize how easily this could be interpreted as the Pillars of Hercules in earlier times. Okay? Now, on the island, so after I made that initial connection, then I started to do a lot of research on ancient Sardinia itself. And so I took the books by Plato, Timaeus and Critias, and everything he said about Atlantis, and then I researched ancient Sardinia. And I mean ancient Sardinia because a lot of things have changed. So all my research was on ancient aspects. And in my research, I found that there was this sunken city, a city of Nora. It's off the coast of Sardinia, southern Sardinia. And like so many other cities back in that time, there was built in layers. So there was a Roman layer, a Phoenician layer. But it's clear that the earlier layers of this city do date back to the Bronze Age, around 1200 BC, which matches up again with a lot of theories about Plato's Atlantis. So here we have an actual city that's sunk in the bottom of the sea right off the coast of Sardinia. So that's obviously one of the places we're going to start our exploration. It's going to require some scuba diving and that type of thing. But there are ruins on land as well from this city, and here's some pictures of some of the ancient ruins of Nora. Okay. Now, another civilization that I researched was referred to as the Nuraji civilization. Again, a Bronze Age civilization, dates back to the time of Crete in around 1200 BC, matches the same time frame. And everything I researched about this culture, again, seemed to match up with what Plato said. Plato said that there were hot and cold baths all over the island of Sardinia, or Atlantis. Well, this culture, there's these ruins all over the island, and they appeared, a lot of them were in fact baths, like the Romans used to have. There are hot and cold springs, by the way, on the island of Sardinia. So here's a number of photographs. I don't know if you can make out. There's a person right here. Kind of shows you the scale of the size of some of these structures. And that's even half destroyed, so you can imagine how big they were. And there's even one of the larger ones, a massive structure. When I first built my website in 2001, I actually had a number of people around the world that emailed me back and forth. And I had one gentleman, he was a former U.S. Navy, and he had actually been stationed in Sardinia, and he said it was fascinating. He said he had actually explored some of these ruins. He said they're all over the island, and in his opinion, they even seem to form a pattern of some kind. So again, right off the bat, there's a number of things for us to explore and research when we get to Sardinia, both the city of Nora and the Nuraji culture. Okay? So again, that's kind of in a nutshell of how we got here with my thesis. But again, go to my website and read the details. There's a lot of things that are fascinating. Plato just matching up with ancient Sardinia. I'll give you one more quick example. Simple things like Plato said there were elephants on the island of Sardinia, or on Atlantis. And we know that there are no elephants there now, but if you study ancient Sardinia, you'll find that they did find skeletons of dwarf elephants on the island in historical times. So again, there's little details that all match up perfect with what Plato said about Atlantis. Okay. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Society for Historical Exploration and how we're going to plan this expedition. First of all, I'm going to do it in stages. This is my first attempt at fundraising, and overall, between 3 stages, I'm going to do 3 different funding attempts on Indiegogo. Overall, I'm going to have to raise about a quarter or $500,000 in order to fund this expedition. But we're going to take step by step. The first step is to form the organization itself. And so the money I'm raising on this, the goal is $44,000, and it's going to be to do the legal fees, to form the nonprofit organization, to do the web design for a new website that will allow member pages and a lot of activity on there, a virtual office, and also marketing. Any project of this magnitude requires marketing. We got to get the word out. One of the key areas that I want to advertise in is I was researching the History Channel Club. They have a magazine for their history club, and it's pretty expensive putting an ad in there. A full-page ad can run you up to $25,000, but they also have 1.5 million readers. And their subscribers are obviously people that are interested in history and love to travel to historical sites and archaeology. So that's a target market. So we need a lot of marketing money. So that's the plan. Initially, stage one, going to just raise the funds to get everybody together, start forming the organization, get a membership established, and do some marketing. Okay? In this first funding, these are the things that I'm offering. Basically, different levels of membership. And you can pick the level that you think you're most interested in. And also, along with your donation, decide on how much you want to get involved. I mean, it's up to you. I'm looking for more than just donations. I'm looking for active members, people that want to do something along with history and archaeology and want to get involved. In this first stage, it's the only time that I can offer the founding membership, which is at the bottom there. Obviously, after this stage, I will then get with an attorney, form the nonprofit organization, and then you can't be a founding member after that. So this is the only opportunity where you can be a founding member, and along with everything else, you get the voting rights. As an organization, we're going to be making decisions in the future, and I do not want to make those decisions by myself. So the founding members will help me make those decisions. One of the first examples will be selecting the people that are actually going to go to Sardinia and participate in the expedition. The founding members will accept letters from members, people that are interested, that think they have the time and the means to go. And then the founding members and myself will go through those letters and we'll vote, and they'll help select who's going to go. So there'll be a number of things that you'll be voting on, and that will only be the founding members that will have that right. Okay. Now the expedition itself, what's the general plan? Well, obviously the plan is to go to Sardinia. That's where it's at. That's where and again, I'm not going to claim to know anything for a fact. I don't like absolutes, but I do believe that is where Plato was talking about, the ancient culture that existed on Sardinia. And so the idea is to go there, to do more research and exploration. If all is successful, I'd like to go in 2015. It's going to last for 9 months period. Again, that's all dependent on if we reach our goal on the amount of funding. And we're going to do research, actual exploration. That includes both on the island itself and diving into the ocean and exploring undersea. And then all that research and exploration doesn't do you any good if you don't get your results published. So the end result is getting it published both in written form, as in the form of a book, and hopefully even in the form of a documentary, a film. And then we can get our findings out to the world and get recognized for our work. The plan is to have a couple full-time associates that will go, and they will oversee and manage the entire expedition over the 9 months. And then to get as many people involved as possible, my idea is to rotate people in and out every month. Approximately 4 volunteers every month would go. Expenses would be covered while you're on the island. Your living and food and all that would be covered by the organization. And by doing that, we can allow up to 36 people to actually go and participate. If we raise more funds than initially attempted, then we'll send more people. We can double that if we double our funds. So it's also important to know that we're going to go as an independent organization. We're not going to be responsible to any other institution or government. We're going to make our own direction. Obviously, we have to cooperate, and but we are going to be independent. And again, the most important reason is why are we doing this? because it would literally be one of the greatest historical discoveries of all time. You think back of when Troy was discovered, or Napoleon finding the Rosetta Stone, or the discovery of King Tut's tomb. I think probably the discovery of Atlantis trumps all of that, and we could all be part of this. Now, an extra benefit is, here's a picture of Sardinia. I mean, we're talking about an expedition to a resort island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Not too shabby. Now, I don't plan for Atlantis to be the end. I actually plan for it to be the beginning. So after this expedition, the Society for Historical Exploration will do other explorations, and some of the other locations may not be so pristine. But on this one, I could see myself working there for 9 months and enjoying it thoroughly, okay? Now, talking about why should we even form a society in the first place? There's other historical societies out there. Well, I've come up with 5 reasons of why I'm proposing that we form this society in the first place, that will then be the mechanism that will sponsor the expedition to Sardinia. First of all, there's a lot of times where people have a passion and they love history or archaeology or some other subject, and if you don't go to school and get a degree, nobody really wants to take you serious. It maybe becomes a hobby, and that's all, and you read some books. Well, that's not the purpose of this society. I want to invite everybody that has a passion for these topics, whether you have a degree or not, whether you're a professor or whether you just have a love of history. I want to open a door for everybody that wants to be a member and participate to participate. Historically, there's been a lot of amateurs that have made major discoveries. Troy itself, the gentleman by the name of Frank Calvert was a complete amateur, had no degree, formal education, and yet he's historically the person identified as the first person to locate Troy, the city of Troy. So all you need is passion. If you have a love of history and archaeology, we want you as a member. Okay? If you are a professor, we'll welcome you as well, obviously. Another reason is just for the development of the social sciences overall. It's kind of my impression that, with education, it's kind of twofold. On one half, we want to get an education so we can have a career and make a good living. But on the other half, a lot of people want to get an education just to enrich themselves, so that you can be an intelligent citizen and a good member of society. Sometimes those two conflict, and it seems like in the last couple of decades, the one for a career has kind of taken over, and that means the social sciences have kind of taken a back seat. Both in our grammar schools all the way up to university. So one of the things for the Society of Historical Exploration is we want to put a flame back in. Put a flame back in to the study of the social sciences. And the discovery of Atlantis would definitely do that. Okay? Like I said before, we're going to be independent, but we're also going to be cooperative. Obviously, we have to cooperate with any government officials or where we go to conduct our research and expeditions. And if we can work with universities and academia, that would be great. And we'll partner with them, partner with other nonprofit organizations. So we want to cooperate, but make it very clear that we're going to be independent. We're going to decide our own goals and our own destiny, okay? And another important factor is to have that active membership, like I said before. So many times people want to do exciting things and have adventures, and they just don't have a way to go about it. And to actually participate, not just donate. I think of a lot of causes where you see it on TV, and there's an organization that says, hey, donate money to this cause. And you're excited about it, and you donate money, and maybe you get a T-shirt, and that's it. And you might even write back and say, hey, how can I participate? How can I help besides donate? And you get kind of a negative response. No, thank you for your donation, goodbye. And again, we're not going to be about that. Yes, I want your donations, because without money, we're not going to be able to achieve any of this, but I also want your membership. I want you to participate. And it may be participation at home doing research, or it may be you actually going on the expedition in person and taking part. And finally, just the idea of studying history is so important to our education, understanding our society, how we got to where we are. and the mistakes we've made, and possibly that education can then maybe even lead to change. The best example I can think of is the Renaissance. You know, for 1,000 years, historians refer to the Dark Ages in Europe. And they refer to it as the Dark Ages because it was that. People lived in a very dark society. And then you had this rebirth of education coming over from Constantinople, the ancient classics, the Greek and the Roman writings, and that just a handful of people started to read those books again, and that led to the Renaissance, the rebirth of learning, which then led to the Reformation, which led to democracy, which led to changed the entire world because some people read some books. So you can't underestimate the power of studying the past and how important it is. A more current example, I work with a lot of military people, and I've had a lot of them tell me up front that the mistakes they made in Iraq and Afghanistan were purely out of ignorance because they didn't study enough about those countries' cultures and their history and to understand before they went in. Okay? So one last quote I want to put up there. I apologize, I can't remember her name. Again, it was 25 years ago or more, but it was one of my English professors at Merced College, and she talking about fiction, this quote, that there's truth in all fiction and fiction in all truth. And I definitely have found that to be true throughout my life. Change the word from fiction to myth, and the meaning is exactly the same. So when we think of the myth of Atlantis, yes, there's going to be some truth in it. What Plato talked about, it was based on something real and something concrete. And then as we study what we think is truth, we'll find that there's usually fiction in it. So in closing, take that. And again, please go to my website, read the whole thesis before you make any decision. I want to just close by thanking Cochise College for allowing me to use their facility to film this video and go through Indiegogo. There's more details about my plan, and I welcome you on board. Thank you very much.